Oh, no, complicated maths. 1, 2, 3.
Really?
1, 2, 3.
Can I have that back? Oh, do you know what it is? When you're doing it, it's going to be a lot louder. I mean, when we were doing it in testing the other day, I had to. That's too loud. So that should do the trick.
1, 2.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool.
Come on, get your jacket off.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to our presentation of the first events of the first Easter. We call it a presentation because it is not a performance. We are not performing, we are presenting something to you. The scene that you have before you is a court scene. It is presided over by a judge, and he has an usher as his assistant. The accused is a Roman soldier who has been accused of neglecting his duty. He is being prosecuted by the prosecuting counsel, who will bring 4 witnesses, and he is defended by the defense counsel, who will bring forth 6 witnesses. The scene that you have before you, of course, is fictitious. But the narrative that we're presenting is true. You may well have seen on the BBC News various reporters on the battlefields of Ukraine. Orla Guerin, Quentin Somerville, Jonathan Beale and others file reports and send them back so that we can see them. Those reports will stay in the archives of the BBC for 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. That's what's happening here. We are bringing to you the first-hand witness accounts of those who were there at the time, 2,000 years ago. Because it's 2,000 years ago, people forget that these things were true. But they are as much an eyewitness account of what happened then as the eyewitnesses to the Ukraine war now. That's very important to keep in mind. They're recorded here in this book, in the Bible. This is the basis of our script. And so all that we're presenting to you this afternoon is in here. And if you haven't got a Bible, there's one on the table at the back, and you can take it home with you to read for yourself. So, the first part of our presentation this evening is the case for the prosecution.
This court is now in session. The accused please stand and tell us his name. I am Legionary Augustus, from the 9th Cohort of the 10th Legion, stationed in Jerusalem.
Legionary, you are charged with neglecting your duty by deserting your post of guarding the tomb in which the body of Jesus of Nazareth was laid. This case is being brought by the civil authorities. Should you be found guilty, you may then face a court-martial by your military superiors. How do you plead?
Not guilty, sir.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to speed up these proceedings, some of the usual routines of this court have been adjusted. Before we entered the courtroom, each witness has testified in my presence that they will tell the truth. You can therefore rely on their testimony. So now your task is very serious. You must consider carefully the evidence that will be put before you. The body of Jesus of Nazareth was missing, with far-reaching consequences. If, as a result of the evidence, you consider this guard to have been negligent in his duties, you must find him guilty. If the evidence persuades you otherwise, you must pronounce him innocent. Either way, his life is in your hands. Prosecuting counsel, you may begin your case.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'll present before you 4 witnesses. You will hear conclusive evidence that Jesus of Nazareth was dead when his body was laid in the tomb. This legionary and his colleagues were commanded to guard it. 3 days later, the tomb was found empty. This could not have happened if the accused had done his duty. His negligence allowed the body to be stolen, and misinformation circulated widely about the deceased. My first witness is Jeremiah of Jerusalem. You are Jeremiah of Jerusalem?
Yes, I am a member of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council.
You were familiar with Jesus of Nazareth?
I heard him teach a number of times, but I did not like what I heard.
Why was that?
Well, he was critical of the religious leadership in our nation and led people astray. He made extravagant claims about himself, which we considered to be blasphemous.
Couldn't you stop him?
Well, we tried, but he was very popular. Nothing we could do could silence him. but he was so dangerous that we decided to get rid of him.
You mean kill him?
Under our law, his claim to be equal with God made him worthy of death. As an occupied territory, we do not have the power to execute him, so when one of his followers betrayed him to us, we arrested him and turned him over to the Roman authorities who did the job for us.
Did you see him executed?
Yes, a few of us were delegated by the council to witness his death so that we could be sure we were rid of that troublemaker.
Thank you. No further questions.
Defence counsel, you may now cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, my lord. In the teaching you heard from Jesus, did he ever claim that he would rise from the dead?
I did not hear him say anything like that, but I did not follow him around and hang on his words like some people. However, we were aware that others had heard him make such a preposterous prediction. It would have been entirely consistent with some of his other ridiculous ideas.
Did you ever see any of his miracles?
I heard some of his far-fetched reports about such things, but did not see him do anything spectacular. We often asked him to support his claims by showing us some sign which would prove that what he had said was true. He refused, saying the only sign he would give was the sign of Jonah, whatever that means. I did not understand a lot of what he did.
Jonah was a prophet, wasn't he?
Certainly not. This man spoke against the law of God and the temple of God, and we are the guardians of both. If he had been a prophet, we would have known.
As you say, other people saw and heard what you did not, and believed Jesus to have been a prophet. They heard him predict his own resurrection, and even saw him bring back people from the dead. They understood the sign of Jonah to be a reference to his own resurrection. Have you ever considered that you might be wrong about Jesus?
Objection. The witness is not on trial here.
Never. I am a Sadducee. Jesus is dead, as he deserved. Resurrection is impossible.
Even yours, sir? I have no further questions, my lord.
Thank you, Jeremiah of Jerusalem. You may step down. Prosecuting counsel, your next witness, please.
Thank you, my lord. My next witness is Pontius Pilate. Will you please identify yourself, sir?
I am Pontius Pilate, servant of Rome and governor of Judea.
How did you meet Jesus of Nazareth?
He'd been brought to me by representatives of the Jewish ruling council. He'd been tried by them and condemned to death. As they were not authorized to carry out the death penalty themselves, they brought him to me to have him executed.
And did you execute him?
Yes. Later the same day, everything happened very quickly. They brought him to me early in the morning and insisted that the execution should be immediate. One of their religious festivals was about to start, which would last a few days, and it was important to them that he was dead before it began.
Couldn't he have been imprisoned until after the festival?
Apparently not. He was gaining an increasing number of followers. He had arrived in Jerusalem about a week before at the head of some kind of procession. We were monitoring the situation, and it seemed to pose no threat to public order, as the crowd later dispersed. The Jewish leaders, however, were concerned that he was a security risk. He was unorthodox, and they were anxious that because of the religious fervour generated by the festival, anything could happen. They wanted him out of the way to preserve the peace.
Were you certain that he was executed according to your instructions?
Yes, I am. He was one of 3 criminals crucified at the same time, and their deaths were reported to me later that day.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Defence counsel, you may now cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, my lord. Could you please tell the court what were the charges made against Jesus of Nazareth?
Well, they were somewhat confused, but from what I could tell, there were two. One related to his claim to be a king. The Jewish nation already had a king, so that could be construed as treasonable. I questioned him about this, but his responses showed he had no political ambition at all. The other charge was religious, something about him claiming to be a god. I know little about the Jewish religion and did not want to get involved in such a dispute.
So what was your opinion about these charges?
I was in no position to pronounce on the second, and the first seemed entirely groundless to me. The man was rational and coherent, not deluded or deranged. He wasn't aggressive or resentful, but calm and dignified. I found him to be honest and fearless, quite unlike any other criminal that has appeared before me. I made it clear to those who brought the man to me that I did not want to get involved in their internal disagreements. I said I would release him, but they were insistent that I carry out the death penalty issued by the court.
So you knowingly executed a man you knew was innocent? Do you have no conscience, sir?
Objection, my lord, please.
I had no choice. I was told his death would be in the public interest and a matter of national security. What else could I do?
I have no further questions, my lord.
Thank you, Governor Pilot. You may step down. Prosecuting counsel, call your next witness, please.
Thank you, my lord. My next witness is Centurion Petronius. Please identify yourself, sir.
I am Petronius, Centurion of the 9th cohort of the 10th Legion.
Did you know a man referred to as Jesus of Nazareth?
Yes, I was in charge of the squad assigned to execute him. I remember him clearly.
Can you describe what happened to him?
The man was one of 3 criminals executed at the same time. Each man was nailed to a wooden cross, and we usually wait until they die. It can take hours, even days. Each man had the charge against him written on a board over his head to deter others from committing the same crime.
Please continue and tell us, what was the charge against Jesus?
It was unusual. It said, King of the Jews. The others were just thieves. On this occasion, a religious festival was approaching, and the Jewish authorities did not want dead bodies exposed during the festival, so we were told to make it quick. We broke the legs of the thieves, and that finished them off. But when we came to Jesus, we found he was already dead. We thrust a spear into him, so if he wasn't dead before that, he certainly was afterwards.
So you are absolutely sure that Jesus was dead?
Yes, I have seen many men die. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Defence counsel, you may now cross-examine this witness.
Thank you, my lord. Could you tell us if there was anything unusual about this execution?
Oh, yes. Around noon, about 3 hours after we started, everything suddenly went dark. We didn't know what was happening. We couldn't do anything. It was frightening. Then, to make matters worse, there was an earthquake. The darkness passed after about 3 hours, and we found that Jesus had died during that time. There was an atmosphere that was hard to describe. We felt the 3 things were connected, and that we'd been a part of an event that was bigger than ourselves. The whole thing made a deep impression on me.
So what was your impression of Jesus?
He was not like any criminal that I'd met. He'd been beaten before he'd been turned over to us and was weakened, but not broken. He was still strong and in control of himself. He offered no resistance and was not abusive. He was mocked by some of the crowd nearby, but he did not respond to them. I heard some of the things that he said to others. Before he died, he tried to comfort his mother who was there, and he reassured one of the thieves next to him that they would soon be in heaven together. But most surprisingly of all, he actually prayed for us. We're used to being cursed, but no one has ever asked God to forgive us like he did. You could tell he meant it. People said he claimed to be the Son of God, and from what I saw and heard of him, I believe it.
Thank you. I have no further questions, my lord.
Centurion Petronius, you may step down. Prosecuting counsel, your next witness, please.
Thank you, my lord. My final witness is Joseph of Arimathea. You are Joseph of Arimathea?
Yes, sir, I am.
You were familiar with Jesus of Nazareth?
Yes, sir. I heard him teach, and I saw the life he lived. I was convinced he was telling the truth about himself, and I became a follower. To my shame, I did not tell anyone, as I had to think of my reputation.
But something changed for you?
While he was alive, I did nothing to help him, even though I had the means to do so. When he died, I realized there was something I could do, even though it was too little, too late.
What did you do?
I went to Governor Pilate, and I asked if I could give the body of Jesus a decent burial. Pilate did not believe that he had already died, so he sent a centurion to confirm it. The centurion did so, and Pilate gave me permission to take the body away.
Were you alone in doing this?
No, my friend Nicodemus helped me take the body down from the cross. Because he and the thieves were dead, the soldiers had gone off duty and there was no one there to help. Some of the female followers of Jesus were there, but we couldn't ask them to help. We took the body to a nearby tomb and put it inside. It was my tomb. I planned that my body would rest there one day, but this seemed a better way to use it.
Are you absolutely sure that Jesus was dead when you put him in the tomb?
Certainly. We were both convinced he was dead.
Thank you. No further questions.
Defence counsel, please cross-examine this witness.
Thank you. Could you please describe the tomb to us?
Well, it was like a large hole carved in a rock, like a small cave. It was big enough for people to stand up inside and walk around in, and there was a shelf where the body would be laid. A huge stone was used to put across the entrance to prevent grave robbers from getting in. It was easy to move into place, but extremely hard to move away again. We sealed it to make sure it was secure.
So what did you do with the body when you put it into the tomb?
We wrapped the body in cloth from head to foot until it was completely covered. Nicodemus had brought some spices to embalm the body, but time was getting short. It was the end of the day, and the festival would be starting soon. We had to finish before nightfall, but there was not enough time. 2 of the women had followed us from the cross to the tomb and said that they would come back after the Sabbath day and finish the embalming. We all left together when it became dark, knowing that everything was secure.
Thank you. I have no further questions, my lord.
Thank you, sir. Prosecuting counsel, you may make your concluding statement.
Thank you, my lord. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have proven that Jesus of Nazareth was dead when he was laid in the tomb. You have heard his execution was planned by Jewish authorities, permitted by Roman authority, successfully performed by efficient Roman execution, and confirmed by grieving supporters at his burial. The accused began his guard duty on the day after the burial, when the tomb was still as secure as it was when the last witness left it. But the tomb was found empty the following day, and the body was gone. This could only have happened had the accused neglected his duty. The facts speak for themselves. The defense will try to claim some kind of supernatural intervention. Whether you believe them or not, this man deserted his post, and you should find him guilty.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecuting counsel has now presented his case. There will now be a brief recess before the counsel for the defence presents his case.
That's the conclusion of the first part of our presentation. Because you came this evening, you volunteered for jury service. And so it is for you to make the choice as whether or not this accused man should be taken to the court-martial. We now have a 10-15-minute recess, so you can start your deliberations together. There will be drinks and refreshments outside if you want to do that. There's a book table over there if you'd like to see what we have. It's all free literature. And then we'll come back in a few moments to hear the case to the defence. Thank you.
Hey, this is Mark Dever here, wanting to tell you about an older book that's being reprinted that I'm very excited about. I used to be an agnostic and became a Christian, and the way the Lord led me to himself was by helping me to think through evidence for the resurrection. Possibly the best short presentation I've ever seen of that is this book that's been reprinted now, Val Grieve, Your Verdict on the Empty Tomb. This little work done by a lawyer who's gone home to be with the Lord is a great rendition of the very facts that seemed to me compelling, even as an unbeliever, as I started to study and think. And I'm so glad that they are again in print in this new printing of Val Grieve, Your Verdict on the Empty Tomb. It's brief, it's compelling. I would encourage you to get it and see what use it could be for you and for others that you have as friends, some of whom don't know the Lord. This might be the book he uses to bring them to himself.
There are few emotions more powerful than hope. It's a spark inside you that brings a smile to your lips, a light that shows on your face, a feeling that lifts your head and pulls you forward. These days, hope like that often feels hard to come by. Maybe you've experienced your share of disappointments, but real hope is what the Christian faith claims to offer. A joyful expectation for the future, based on true events in the past, which changes everything about my present. Hope Explored is a 3-session series for anyone who is looking for a hope worth having. Whatever you do or don't believe, this is your invitation to explore, to discuss, to question, to discover. This is Hope Explored.
Begin the second part of our presentation now. You've had referred to on the screen the book that is on your seat. That book is free for you to take home to think about this matter a bit further. If you want extra copies, there are even more on the table at the back. If you want to follow up the Hope Explored course option, then there's a yellow card, so you can talk to me or one of the people in a white shirt about that afterwards if you want to follow that through. Because this is a presentation and not a performance, you'll appreciate there's no opportunity for applause. We go into the second part of our presentation now, which is the case for the defence.
The Defence Counsel, you may now proceed with your opening statement and then please call your first witness.
Thank you, my lord. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the case for the defense does not deny the fact that Jesus of Nazareth was dead when his body was laid in the tomb. I shall present evidence beyond question that Jesus did not stay dead, but came back to life. This may seem impossible, but the evidence is overwhelming. It is because of this fact that my client should be absolved of his responsibility. There was simply no body to guard. It was not because of negligence on his part that the event occurred. He could not prevent a resurrection. None of us can. My first witness is the accused, Legionary Augustus. Legionary, when did you take up your post outside the tomb of Jesus of Nazareth?
It was the day after he died. The same squad that had crucified him was commanded to guard his tomb. It was a very unusual order. We'd never done it before.
So why were you selected?
The religious leaders went to Governor Pilate with a request. They were afraid that the followers of Jesus would try to steal the body and tell people he had risen from the dead, because an important festival was starting. They were concerned that such a rumour would provoke civil unrest. It was thought that we could recognise any of his followers involved in stealing the body, because we may have seen them at the execution.
And did any of the followers come to his tomb?
On the first day, the day we took up post, no one came at all. But very early in the morning, on the second day, 2 women came by. We'd seen them at the execution.
Had they come to steal the body?
No. They'd brought spices to finish embalming it. They were surprised to see us at first, but then they were glad, because they'd been wondering how to move the stone. They asked us to do it for them.
And did you?
No. There was no need. Something amazing happened. I'm still struggling to believe it was real. An angel suddenly appeared and rolled back the stone. We watched him do it. We were terrified. I've been in many battles, but I've never been so frightened in my life. He was dazzling. It was like looking at lightning. He spoke to the women and then went into the tomb with them.
And what did you do?
We went to the religious leaders who had requested a guard and reported to them everything we'd seen.
Thank you, Legionary. No further questions, my lord.
Thank you, my lord. Did you look inside the tomb?
No, sir.
So you did not know if the body was still there?
We had no reason to think that it had been moved or that anything else had happened to it.
You have admitted that you deserted your post?
Objection, my lord. My client was only doing his duty by reporting these events to his superiors.
Your objection sustained. Please continue.
Thank you. Legionary, anything could have happened in your absence. This angel was nothing but a trick to divert your attention away from the tomb. Having left your post, you would not know that the followers of Jesus stole the body after you had gone.
That may be so, sir. I cannot tell you what I did not see. I can only tell you what I saw. An angel came down from heaven and sat upon the stone after he had rolled it away from the entrance to the tomb.
Do you really expect us to believe such an incredible story? When you reported to the Jewish leadership, isn't it true? They bribed you to spread the rumor that the followers of Jesus stole the body while you were asleep? Your story has changed.
Yes, sir, but I regretted what I did. They said they would protect us from facing charges if we kept to that story. But I couldn't do it any longer, so I took the money back, and that is why I am here now. I place myself at the mercy of this court.
Legionary, if you lied once for money, I put it to you that you could do so again for even more money. Perhaps you have found a new paymaster amongst the followers of Jesus.
I have nothing to gain from telling the truth except a clear conscience.
No further questions.
Thank you, Legionary. Return to the dock. Defence Counsel, call your next witness, please.
My next witness is Mary of Magdala, all known as Mary Magdalene. Could you please confirm your name?
I'm Mary of Magdala, but I'm usually known as Mary Magdalene.
And were you at the cross when Jesus died?
Yes, I was, along with other women, including Jesus' mother. And after he died, some of us followed Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus when they took the body of Jesus to Joseph's tomb.
And did you return to the tomb 2 days later?
Yes, I did. Some of us arranged to meet at the tomb to finish embalming his body because we hadn't been able to do it on the day when he died, when it was put there. Each of us made our own way there from different parts of the city. My friend and I got to the tomb first, before the others arrived. And we were rather shocked to find it being guarded by Roman soldiers. But actually we were quite pleased because we thought they could move the stone that was put in front of the tomb. They could move it for us, but in fact they didn't need to, because suddenly an angel appeared and moved the stone away. And as you can imagine, we were all very frightened. The angel told my friend and I that Jesus had risen from the dead. He even invited us to go into the tomb.
Did the soldiers go into the tomb with you?
No, they didn't. They ran away when we went inside. But there was another angel in the tomb, and he told us to go back to the other followers of Jesus and tell them that he had risen from the dead, just as he said he would.
And did you do that?
Well, we both went outside, and my friend started to run off straight away, but I hung back, because actually I was very confused. I didn't really know what was happening. I just stood there, and I was crying, because I thought somebody had taken the body of Jesus away. And then I realized that there was somebody behind me, and I supposed it was the gardener. So I turned round to ask him if he knew where the body of Jesus had been taken. And the man said my name, and I knew it was Jesus himself, and he was alive.
Thank you, Mary. I have no further questions, my lord.
Prosecuting counsel, please cross-examine the witness now.
My lord, are you perfectly sure it was Jesus? You were mistaken once, perhaps you were mistaken again?
There could be no mistake. I had spent such a long time with him that I would recognize him anywhere. My friend saw him too, because when she realized that I hadn't followed her, she came back to see if I was all right, and she found me talking to Jesus.
I understand that you have been regarded as being possessed by demons. Is it not possible that you were deluded into thinking that Jesus was real when he was nothing more than a product of your own wishful thinking? Your friend, out of sympathy for you, simply went along with your delusion.
No, sir. Jesus healed me. Those days are behind me.
It seems to me those days have returned, but you have not recognized it yet.
Objection, my lord.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mary Magdala. You may step down. Defense counsel, please call your next witness.
My next witness is Simon Peter. Could you please confirm your name for us?
I'm Simon, a fisherman from Galilee, now known as Peter.
And were you present at the execution of Jesus of Nazareth?
No, sir. When Jesus was arrested, we all laid low for a while. We thought they'd be coming after us next.
And where did you hide?
We went back to the upstairs room where we'd been given permission to stay for the whole time of the festival. There were 10 of us that were staying there, but the women weren't with us at that time.
But they knew where you were?
Yes, they brought us food. But then, on the third day after Jesus had been crucified, they came to us really early in the morning with some garbled story about the tomb being empty and seeing Jesus alive from the dead. And we didn't believe it at first. We just thought they were still grief-stricken and overcome in that way. But they were so insistent that, well, a couple of us went to the tomb to have a look for ourselves. And when we got there, we saw the tomb was empty and the grave clothes arranged in a neat pile.
Did you see Jesus?
The friend that I went with was younger and quicker than me, and he got to the tomb before me. And he went into the tomb, and when he saw the grave clothes folded on the side, he believed that Jesus had been risen from the dead just from seeing those grave clothes. And he came out and told me, and I went in and had a look as well, but I wasn't so sure at that time. And then he went off then to go and tell the others, and I hung around for a bit, and then suddenly there was Jesus standing right in front of me.
And what did he say to you?
Well, that conversation is going to remain private. But after that, we went back, and I went back to meet the others in the upstairs room, and we were there together talking with each other, and then suddenly Jesus appeared with us in the room. And we were totally amazed. We thought it was a ghost. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. But then as we talked with him, and he talked with us, and he let us touch the wounds, and we even ate some fish with him, so after a while we started to realize that this really is Jesus alive from the dead, and we couldn't believe it. And then he just disappeared.
Thank you, Peter. I have no further questions, my lord.
Prosecuting counsel, you may now cross-examine the witness.
Lord, do you really expect us to believe that this man could appear and disappear at will? It's impossible.
Well, that's right. Before this happened, I would have said the same myself. But it happened again. Two of our friends were walking along a road outside Jerusalem, going to their hometown, and it was Jesus that started walking with them, but they didn't see who he was. They didn't understand who he was. And he was talking with them and chatting with them about lots and lots of different things, and then they invited him into their house for some hospitality after that, and they broke bread together, and as they were doing that, suddenly they realized who he was, and he just disappeared again.
Simon Peter, isn't it true that while you were an active follower of Jesus, on one occasion you denied any association with him, or even any knowledge of him?
Yes, sir, that is true, and I've never been more ashamed of anything in my life.
We have heard this man testify that he told lies in relation to Jesus of Nazareth when it suited him. These ludicrous stories about a man passing through solid brick suggest he is doing so again. No further questions, my lord.
Thank you, Simon Peter. You may step down. Defence counsel, call your next witness.
My next witness is Didymus the twin. Could you please confirm your name for us?
I am Didymus the twin, but now known as Thomas.
Were you with the other close followers of Jesus when the women came back from the tomb?
No, I thought it was all over. We had lost our leader, and none of us could take his place. The whole thing appeared to have fallen apart, and there was no point in meeting up again.
But you did change your mind later.
Yes. The others found me and told me that they'd seen Jesus alive. To begin with, I didn't believe it. I knew that Jesus had predicted it. However, death is final to me. I needed hard evidence. I needed to touch him again to know that he was real. Anyway, they persuaded me to join them so we could work out things and what to do next. So I was with them a week later on the Sabbath day.
So what happened?
Well, Jesus appeared suddenly in the room with us, just like the others had said before. It was the same Jesus come back to life.
Thank you, Thomas. I have no further questions, my lord.
Prosecuting counsel, you may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, my lord. You said you doubted the predictions of Jesus about rising from the dead. You said you doubted the testimony of your friends who claimed to have seen him. Isn't it reasonable for you to doubt the reality of such an unlikely event as a resurrection?
No, sir. I know what I saw. I was convinced straight away. I could see the scars left by the nails which fixed him to the cross, still visible on his hands and his feet. There was no doubt it was the same man. I didn't need to touch him to find out. There could only be one Jesus.
No further questions, my lord.
Thank you, Thomas. You may step down. Defence counsel, your next witness, please.
My next witness is Saul of Tarsus.
Saul of
Tarsus. Could you please confirm your name for us?
I am Saul of Tarsus, now known as Paul.
Did you know Jesus before he was crucified?
No, sir.
Objection, my lord. How can the testimony of this witness be relevant if he did not even know the dead man?
Defence counsel, how do you respond to that objection?
My lord, the case for the defence relies upon the credibility of the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. My client should be regarded as innocent if he could not prevent it. This witness and my last witness will both testify, although that they did not know Jesus before he died, they both knew him after he rose from the dead.
Objection overruled. Defence counsel, you may continue to question the witness.
Thank you, my lord. Could you please tell the court how you met Jesus of Nazareth?
Yeah, I was travelling with others to Damascus. About noon, a bright light suddenly shone down on us. It was far brighter than the light of the sun, and I knew it was from heaven. We fell to the ground, terrified. Then a loud voice spoke to me by name. I asked who was speaking, and the voice replied, "I am Jesus of Nazareth." He had appeared to me so that I may tell others about what I'd seen and heard of him. He then told me to go into Damascus, where I'd find out what was to happen to me next.
Thank you, Paul. I have no further questions, my lord.
Prosecuting counsel, you may now cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, my lord. Did your companion hear the voice?
Yes, but I was the only one he spoke to. They had seen the light, so knew something had happened, because I was blinded, and they were not. They led me into Damascus, where Jesus had spoken to one of his followers there, and he then came and healed me.
What was your reason for your visit to Damascus?
I had been appointed by the Jewish religious leaders to imprison or execute any followers of Jesus I'd found there. I'd been given the same commission in other places before. I knew his followers were claiming he had risen from the dead. They thought he was the Son of God and the Messiah we were all expecting. I didn't believe a word of it. To me, it was all dangerous and blasphemous nonsense, and I was very glad to have a part in destroying their communities before such vile falsehood infected many more people. How wrong I was. Since I met the risen Jesus, my life has changed completely. He called me to tell others about the good news that Jesus had risen, and I've been doing that ever since.
The jury has heard one witness for the defense confess that he changed his story. Here we have a witness confessing he has changed his sides completely. How can testimony from such unstable people be reliable? No further questions, my lord.
Thank you, Paul. You may step down. Defence counsel, do you have a final witness?
Yes, my lord. My final witness is Peter Sidon. Please confirm your name.
My name is Peter Sidon. I am a follower of Jesus Christ.
How do you know that Jesus Christ rose from the dead?
I know him because I talked with him this morning. I know he's with me each day. About 45 years ago, while at university in Liverpool, I was confronted with a similar question to the one being asked here today. Is Jesus Christ really alive? I had been brought up to go to church every week and was taught that yes, he had really died and God had raised him back to life. But what bugged me was that if he had been raised to life, was he really alive today, 2,000 years later? Or had he just been resuscitated back to life and then died again in old age, just like Lazarus and Jairus' daughter? What could I do to find out? Firstly, I was challenged to look at history and examine the evidence that the Bible account was true concerning the earthly life of Jesus, rather than this story being a myth or legend. The answer I found was that the Bible account of Jesus Christ was historically true, just as much so as any other famous person in history at that time, like Julius Caesar. Secondly, I needed to examine the claims of Jesus Christ, because if he was raised by God, never to die again, that meant he must be alive today, somewhere. I needed to examine the claim he made that he ascended to heaven to live with his Father, but by an amazing power called the Holy Spirit, he could not only communicate with me, but live inside me all the time, every moment of every day. In Liverpool, all those years ago, I was confronted with this stark reality. The only way I would ever know the reality of the risen Jesus living in my life, and not just know about him as a good man in history, was to trust his promise to come to him by faith. This was not blind faith, but faith based on compelling evidence.
Thank you, Peter. I have no further questions, my lord.
Prosecuting counsel, do you wish to cross-examine this witness?
No, my lord. Since the case with the prosecution regards the idea of resurrection, a superstitious fabrication, we have no relevant questions for this witness.
Thank you. You may step down, Peter. Prosecuting counsel, please make your closing statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, our case is simple. It is based on the unmistakable and universally acknowledged fact that death is the end. It is final. It is the point from which there is no return. We have clearly established that Jesus of Nazareth died and was buried. The accused was charged with guarding a dead body. How difficult can that be? Yet he admits he left his post, and as a result, the body was missing. Whatever attempts he and others make to explain them away, an invisible man, angels, lights in the sky, and disembodied voices, the facts cannot be denied. Therefore, you must find this man guilty.
Thank you. Defence counsel, please make your closing statement.
Thank you, my lord. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the case for the defence is also based on fact, a new fact, the fact of resurrection. Just because something has not happened before does not mean it can ever happen. This new fact has been witnessed by many people, a few of whom are here with us today. Those present have faithfully testified to their experience of this fact, even though their testimony might sound strange to us. We cannot dismiss what they have told us, just because it's never been thought possible up to now. Some new facts are the result of human achievement. Others, like resurrection, are the result of divine activity. Only the one who gave life in the first place can give new life now. It is only the greater power of God that can overcome the lesser power of death. My client could not prevent resurrection. He could only report it. By leaving his post, he was not neglecting his duty, but performing his duty by telling his superiors what was happening to the body of Jesus of Nazareth. He is to be commended for his diligence, not condemned for his negligence. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you must find this man innocent.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've now heard evidence from both the prosecution and from the defence. You must now consider very carefully what you have heard, as a great deal rests upon your conclusion. The court will now be cleared, so you can begin your deliberations. Thank you for your attendance and for your attention.
Well, that concludes our presentation, but now the work starts for you. If you choose to consider the accused man guilty, then what happens is that you deny the resurrection. This verdict has implications for you as much as it does for him, in fact more so. If you choose to deny the resurrection, you're saying that Christianity is a complete sham and has no basis in reality, because Christianity is based on the reality of the resurrection. If you deny the resurrection, you're saying that God is a liar, because the account of the resurrection of Jesus is preserved in the Bible, which is the Word of God. If you deny the resurrection, you're saying there is no hope of heaven at all, because there cannot be any life after death. The resurrection of Jesus proves that there is life after death. And so the question that you must ask for yourself is, will I share that same life after death that Jesus has? And the answers are in his own teaching. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. So if you would be in heaven with God, if you would come to the Father, the only way to get there, says Jesus himself, is by him. He also says, I am the resurrection and the life. He who lives and believes in me shall never die. Yet though he die, yet shall he live. Which means that you can live a life, and as you believe in Jesus, that life will continue after death, just like Jesus's did. What happens then, when you die, is that you continue to live, just like him. So to deny the resurrection is to deny your own hope of resurrection. What must you do? You must do what Peter did. You must do what every one of the presenters has done. And that is trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. Not just in the fact of the resurrection, but in the significance of the resurrection. If we would be united with him in a resurrection like his, we must first be united with him in a death like his. That's what needs to happen. We need to recognize that our lives so far have been a Christless life, a godless life, a life which will not get us into heaven, however good we may think it has been. And what we need to do is to confess that to God, to turn away from that life, to embrace the truth that we have discovered in Jesus, and realize that the only way that we can get to heaven is through the one who has gone there himself, Jesus. That's where he came from. That's why we celebrate Christmas. And that's where he went back to. And those who would go there too will only get there as they unite themselves with him and acknowledge that they have done wrong and trust him for their eternal future. So, your eternal future is bound up with the truth that we have presented here this afternoon. A lot to think about, a lot to talk about. We're going to draw this occasion to a conclusion now. Thank you for attending. Please talk amongst yourselves before you leave if you want to, so that you can discuss the verdict. If you'd like to go and look at the bookstall, please do that and help yourself to anything of interest. If you'd like to talk to the presenters, most of them are over there. Some are here, of course, so you can inquire and talk further about any of us. So thank you for coming, and we trust that God will bless his word to your life in the days to come. Thank you.